beautiful people. Today we will take a look at your female reproductive system. Okay, your female reproductive system comprises of it comprises of your internal genital organs, which are located in the pelvis. You have your ovaries, your uterine tubes, your uterus, and vagina. Okay, you have your external organs, which are located on the perineum, which includes your mons pubis, your labia majora, your labia minora, your clitoris, your vestibule, and your vaginal opening. Your accessory sex glands, it is accessory sex glands, includes your mammary glands, your lesser vestibular glands or your Skin's glands, your Bartholin's or your greater vestibular glands. Yes, your Bartholin's glands is otherwise known as your greater vestibular glands, and your pregnancy-related structures like your placenta and umbilical cord. Okay, and so all of this comprises your female reproductive system. Okay, you have here an illustration showing you your female reproductive system. Okay, and so or the parts of your female reproductive system. Of course, you have here internal, okay, inside the pelvic cavity. Of course, you have your ovary, okay, your fallopian tube, your uterus, okay, and then you have your vagina. Okay, of course, you have your labia majora, your labia minora, and then you have your urethra, and then you have your clitoris. Okay, mons pubis accordingly still is part of your female reproductive system. Okay, let's take a look at your ovaries. Your ovaries, they're accordingly almond shaped and pinkish white paired organs. Okay, they are paired organs. They are almond shaped and they have a pinkish white color. Please note that each ovary lies in a broad ligament. They lie in broad ligament. Your ovaries have a 3 centimeters in length and 1.5 centimeters wide and a thickness of 1 centimeter. Okay, your ovaries they function for the following. Okay, your ovaries again perform two major functions. First is your gametogenesis. Okay, gametogenesis, of course, when you say gametogenesis, that is the production of your female gametes or production of your ova. And then you have your uh, secretion of your hormones, secretion of steroid hormones, namely you have your estrogens and progesterone. Your estrogen here promotes growth of reproductive organs and mammary glands, while your progesterone, the progesterone prepares the internal genital organs for reproduction in each menstrual cycle. Okay, again, for your estrogen, it promotes growth of reproductive organs and the mammary glands, and your progesterone, it prepares the internal genital organs for reproduction in each menstrual cycle. Okay, and so kaya, usually accordingly, for individuals, your trans women, okay, they take in estrogen. Okay, they take in estrogen to enhance or to enlarge, I mean, yes, to enhance their breasts. Okay, and so on a side note. Anyway, okay, the surface of the ovary is covered by a single layer of cuboidal epithelium. Okay, and so this epithelium is known as your, yes, the single layer of cuboidal epithelium is otherwise known as your germinal epithelium. It is your germinal epithelium. Okay, please note that the epithelium, this germinal epithelium, it does not give rise to your female gametes, no? Okay, please note again, this germinal epithelium that covers your ovary, it will not give rise uh, to your female gametes. Okay, it will not give rise to your female gametes. So what then? So what then produces your female gametes? It is actually your primordial germ cells that will give rise to your female gametes. Okay, and so it is your primordial germ cells coming from the yolk sac. This primordial germ cell will give rise to your female gametes. And yes, please note that this germinal epithelium, the germinal epithelium that covers, okay, the surface of your ovary is continuous with the mesothelium of the peritoneum. Again, the germinal epithelium that covers your ovary is continuous with the mesothelium of the peritoneum. Okay, of course, your germinal epithelium rests on a connective tissue layer known as your tunica albuginea. Your tunica albuginea, again, that is the layer after your germinal epithelium. Okay, you have your germinal epithelium and then you have your tunica albuginea. Of course, your tunica albuginea here is a connective tissue layer. And then you have a cortex. Okay, and so by the way, in the context of your tunica albuginea, the tunica albuginea of the testes is much thicker and denser than that of the ovary. Okay, and so if you remember, there is a tunica albuginea present in your testes, diba? And this tunica albuginea present in the testes is much thicker and much denser than that of the tunica albuginea in the ovary. And yes, again, so the peripheral portion of the ovary that lies beneath the tunica albuginea, of course, you have the cortex. Okay, again, the peripheral portion of the ovary that lies just beneath the tunica albuginea consists of various stages of ovarian follicles with oocyte. Okay, it consists of various stages of ovarian follicles with oocyte. Your oocytes here, these are your germ cells. Okay, these are your germ cells. Okay, these ovarian follicles with oocytes are present in the cellular connective tissue stroma. And yes, the stromal cells of the cortex surround the ovarian follicles and they form your follicular cells. Okay, the stromal cells of the cortex surround your ovarian follicles and they form your follicular cells. Corona radiata, cumulus oophorus, granulosa cells, theca interna, and theca externa cells accordingly. Aside from those, the cortex of the ovary also contains corpus luteum, corpus albicans, and atretic follicles. Okay, and so those are present in your cortex of the ovary. Okay, there is also a medulla. There is also a medulla or an ovarian medulla. Your medulla, it is located in the central portion of your ovary and mainly consists of loose connective tissue. Okay, it mainly consists of loose connective tissue, blood vessels, lymphatic vessels, and nerve fibers accordingly. Okay, and so the ovary, it also has a hilum. Okay, so it also has a hilum. Okay, and so there is a hilum in the ovary. It is the portion of the ovary wherein blood vessels enter the ovarian medulla. Okay, and so as for the cortex and the medulla of the ovary, there is accordingly no clear demarcation between the cortex and the medulla of the ovaries. Okay, you have here a histologic illustration showing you your ovary. Of course, you have here this portion here is the hilum. Okay, this portion here is the hilum. Of course, you have here the medulla. This is the medulla, wherein, of course, you can find your what you call this lymph vessels, blood vessels, and the rest. Okay, this is the site of entry of vessels naman, the hilum. And then you have your cortex. Okay, and so your cortex here. Okay, your cortex and your cortex. Please note that formation of gametes, female gametes, occurs in the cortex, as well as, of course, maturation of your female gametes occurs in the cortex. And yes, gamete formation and maturation are responsible for the cystic spaces present. Okay, and so gamete formation again and maturation, they are responsible for the cystic spaces present here. Mm. Your cortex, your ovarian cortex, accordingly, shows various stages of developing follicles. Okay, and so yes, your ovarian cortex, they show various stages of developing follicles, and you have this developing follicles. Of course, you have your primordial follicle, secondary follicle, Graafian follicle, corpus luteum, corpus albicans, and Tretic follicles. Please note that your primordial germ cells, no, your primordial germ cells will give rise to your oogonia before the birth of a female. Okay, and so meaning that is during the fetal life. Again, your primordial germ cells will give rise to your oogonia during the fetal life. And yes, your oogonia here will multiply, mitotically multiply, and enlarge to form your primary oocyte. Okay, so first, you have your primordial germ cells that will give rise to your oogonia, and then this oogonia mitotically multiply to produce primary oocyte. And yes, your primary oocyte here, okay, the primary oocyte will, what we call this, proliferate, and yes, they complete the prophase of the first meiotic division. Again, the primary oocyte proliferate and complete the prophase of first meiotic division. Please note, in the production of your oocyte, diba, you have meiosis 1 and meiosis 2. Okay, your primary oocyte will complete the prophase of your first meiotic division and will get arrested. Okay, and so it will get arrested at the diplotin stage. Okay, it will get arrested at the diplotin stage at birth. Okay, and so that is at birth. Same, it is the same actually with your spermiogenesis. Okay, once your primary oocyte, okay, reaches the diplotin stage, it will stop right there. Okay, the what we call this, the preceding stages of meiosis will not proceed. Okay, it will not proceed. 'Di ba? It will stop, it will get arrested at birth. Once na pinanganak na po yung batang babae, I mean the newborn, okay, the primary oocyte will get arrested at the diplotin stage accordingly. Okay? Yes. Okay, and so it will stop there. The oocyte will stop there, I mean stop at that stage due to the presence of your oocyte maturation inhibitor factor. Okay, and so yes, again, the primary oocyte is arrested in the diplotin stage at birth by your oocyte maturation inhibitor factor until puberty. Okay, and so when a female, okay, and so when a female reaches puberty, this primary oocyte, which is arrested at birth, will be reactivated. It will be reactivated. Please note that out of 2 million primary oocyte, you have yes, 400,000 will persist up to puberty and only 500 will ovulate. Again, this is nice to know naman. Out of 2 million primary oocyte that is produced, at least 400,000 will persist up to puberty and only 500 will ovulate. Okay? With that, your primary oocyte, from birth to puberty, the follicles will remain in the dormant phase. Okay, you have your primordial follicles. Your primordial follicles, these are located just beneath your tunica albuginea in the cortex of the ovary. And yes, your primordial follicle, it consists of an oocyte, which is 30 micrometers in size. The oocyte that is present in the primordial follicle is 30 micrometers in size. It has an eccentric nucleus, a cytoplasm, and a Balbiani body. Okay, your Balbiani body. Your Balbiani body here is a membraneless ball of mitochondria. Again, it is your Balbiani body is a membraneless ball of mitochondria. Okay, and so it is made of a membraneless ball of mitochondria, other organelles, and the proteins accordingly. Of course, the oocyte present in your primordial follicle is surrounded by a single layer of squamous follicular cells. Again, the oocyte that is present in your primordial follicle is surrounded by a single layer of squamous follicular cells. Okay, you have here actually an illustration of a primordial follicle. Okay, this one, this illustration here comes from a what they call this, from a ovarian cortex of a 32-week-old fetus. Okay, 32-week-old fetus accordingly. And yes, it is packed with primordial follicles. And of course, each of these primordial follicles comprises a large primary oocyte. These are your primary oocyte. Again, okay, you have a primordial follicle, and each primordial follicle, it has a primary oocyte with a single layer of flat granulosa cells, or your follicular cells. Okay, accordingly, you have here your flat granulosa cells. Okay, accordingly, most primordial follicles undergo continuing atresia throughout infancy, childhood, and the years of sexual maturity. Okay, and then you have here what they call this, an ovarian cortex from an old, from a mature individual. Okay, and so this one is from a mature individual, mature woman. Okay, and so showing a persistence of some primordial follicles. Primordial follicles, of course, this one has a lower magnification. It has a lower magnification. Okay, and so this is a primordial follicle. Of course, you have your stroma. Okay, and then you have your primary follicle. Of course, your primordial follicle will enlarge, okay, and the surrounding follicular cells will proliferate and become cuboidal to form primary follicle. Okay, again, your primordial follicle will enlarge and the surrounding follicular cells will proliferate and become cuboidal in nature. Cuboidal cells, okay, to form your primary follicle. Okay, the oocyte in your primary follicle starts secreting homogeneous, so deeply staining acidophilic layer between the oocyte and follicular cells. Okay, and you call this layer as your zona pellucida. Okay, you call that layer as the zona pellucida. Again, your oocyte, during your primary follicle phase, the oocyte will start secreting homogeneous, deeply staining acidophilic layer between the oocyte and follicular cells. And yes, you call that layer as the zona pellucida. Your zona pellucida again is rich in glycosaminoglycans and glycoproteins. Accordingly, it is rich in glycosaminoglycans and glycoproteins. This zona pellucida will stain positive with periodic acid shift. Bakit? Because it has glycosaminoglycans and glycoproteins, okay, giving you a deep magenta color. That is for your zona pellucida. Of course, the follicular cells of your primary follicle will multiply to form a membrane granulosa cells. Okay, again, the follicular cells of your primary follicle will multiply to form your membrane granulosa cells, which you call it as your stratum granulosum. Okay, and so this membrane granulosa cells are cuboidal cells in nature. Okay, they are cuboidal cells in nature. And yes, of course, the outermost layer will rest on a basal lamina. Okay, your surrounding stromal cells, the surrounding stromal cells of your primary follicle will differentiate into, you have theca interna and theca externa. Okay, your theca interna here, this is the inner portion and is high, it has a is highly vascular layer of cuboidal cells, while the theca externa, this is the outer portion, and is a connective tissue layer that consists of smooth muscle cells and bundles of collagen fibers. Again, your theca interna is the inner portion and is your highly vascular layer of cuboidal cells, and your theca externa, this is the outer layer, outer portion, yes, which is a connective tissue in nature or made of connective tissues that consist of smooth muscle cells and bundles of collagen fibers. You have here actually an illustration showing you your primary follicle. Okay, and so you have your granulosa cells. Granulosa cells, again, they are cuboidal in nature. Okay, you have your granulosa cells here. Okay, okay, your granulosa cells again, okay, they are divide to produce a 3 to 5 cell layer thick. Okay, and so this is your granulosa cell layer. And of course, you have your pink staining zone here. Okay, and so this is your pink staining zone. This is your zona pellucida. Okay, and so it is your zona pellucida, which of course becomes apparent between the oocyte and the granulosa cells. Okay, and so in this one, further maturation accordingly of your secondary follicle occurs by continuing proliferation of your granulosa cells. Again, so later on we will take a look at your secondary follicles. Okay, and so yes, in this one, you have the appearance of your fluid-filled cavity. Okay, and so this is your fluid-filled cavity. And yes, there is a condensation of stromal cells around the follicle, forming your theca internal layer. Okay, and so you have this one. Okay, and then of course an outer layer, which is your theca externa. Okay, the cells here are spindle-shaped cells. Okay, this one is a diagrammatic illustration showing you the stages, okay, of your development of your follicles, ovarian follicles. No, you have your primordial follicle. Okay, inside your primordial follicle is your oocyte, which is surrounded by your follicular cells. Your primary follicle, your primary follicle, it has your oocyte inside, and it is surrounded by your follicular cells. Okay, your follicular cells, and then you have your multilaminar primary follicular follicle, sorry. Okay, and so you have multilaminar laminar, you have your you can what you call this appreciate here your zona pellucida, and then your granulosa cells. Okay, and then the following. Okay, and so yes, your primordial follicle is smaller comparing it with your primary follicle. Okay, and then you have your secondary follicles. Of course, with the growth of the follicle, your granulosa cells will proliferate and a fluid-filled cavities will start appearing among these cells, okay, among your follicles accordingly. Of course, the small cavities, okay, the small cavities will fuse to form a large fluid-filled cavity called as antrum. Okay, and so again, with the growth of your follicles, the granulosa cells will proliferate and it will produce a fluid-filled cavities, okay, or a fluid-filled cavities will start appearing among these granulosa cells. In these small cavities present will fuse to form a large fluid-filled cavity known as your antrum. Okay, and so known as your antrum. Again, your small cavities will fuse to form a fluid-filled cavity, which is known as your antrum. Okay, and so antrum. And of course, the fluid present in the antrum is liquor folliculi. Again, the liquid present in the antrum is called as liquor folliculi. Okay. The follicle, the follicle within the antrum, okay, is called as your secondary follicle accordingly. Again, the follicle within the antrum is called as your secondary follicle. Okay, and the oocyte present that will enlarge up to 125 micrometers in diameter, and its further growth will get arrested by your oocyte inhibitor accordingly. Again, your oocyte will enlarge up to 125 micrometers in diameter, and its further growth gets arrested or stopped by your oocyte maturation inhibitor factor. Okay, this oocyte maturation inhibitor factor is secreted by your granulosa cells. This one is secreted by your granulosa cells. Accordingly, on the appearance of your follicular antrum or on the appearance of your antrum, some granulosa cells will form cumulus oophorus layer. Okay, your cumulus oophorus layer, and yes, it will surround the oocyte. Okay, this cumulus oophorus layer will surround your oocyte, and in the future, this cumulus oophorus layer will soon become your corona radiata cells. Okay, will soon become your corona radiata cells. Okay, you have your Cal-Exner bodies. Your Cal-Exner bodies are extracellular bodies, or yes, extracellular bodies which are periodic acid shift positive. When you stain them, they are positive with PAS. And this Cal-Exner bodies, which are extracellular bodies, they consist of hyaluronic acid and proteoglycans, which are secreted by your granulosa cells. Okay, again, this one shows you your, what you call this, the maturation of your follicles. Okay, and so you have your secondary follicles present. Of course, you have your, what you call this, your antrum in here. Okay, and then you have your Graafian follicle, no? Your Graafian follicle is about 100, is about 10 millimeters in diameter or greater accordingly. Your Graafian follicle again is about 10 millimeters in diameter or even greater. Okay, the primary oocyte present. Okay, the primary oocyte present completes the first meiotic division to form your secondary oocyte and the first polar body. Okay, again, your primary oocyte will complete the first meiotic division to form secondary oocyte and the first polar body. Your follicular antrum will increase in size, and the granulosa cells of your cumulus oophorus surrounding the oocyte will form a layer known as your corona radiata. Okay, again, the follicular antrum will increase in size, and the granulosa cells of your cumulus ovorus surrounding the oocyte will form a layer known as your corona radiata. And yes, your Graafian follicle will bulge on the surface of the ovary. Okay, please note that your Graafian follicle will bulge on the surface of the ovary. Okay, your theca interna cells, they secrete androgens. Your theca interna cells will they secrete androgens, and the granulosa cells will convert this androgen into estrogen. Again, your theca interna cells will secrete androgen, and your granulosa cells will convert the androgen secreted by your theca interna into estrogen. Okay, and yes, your granulosa cells will proliferate under the influence of estrogen and will increase the size of the follicle. Okay, the granulosa cells will proliferate under the influence of estrogen and will increase the size of the follicle. Okay, this is actually an illustration of your tertiary or your Graafian follicle. Okay, and so you have here a mature tertiary follicle. Okay, and so you have this one. This is your fluid-filled antrum or your antrum. Okay, you have an excentrally located oocyte. This is the oocyte. Please note. Okay, excentrally located oocyte. This is your oocyte, and you have your cumulus oophorus. Okay, cumulus oophorus of your granulosa cells around the oocyte. Cumulus oophorus surrounding your oocyte. Okay, and so this one is an enlarged version of this, of course. Okay, and so you have your oocyte here. This is your oocyte, and then you have your what they call this cumulus oophorus here. Okay, you have your cumulus oophorus present. Okay, you have your granulosa cell layer here. Okay, you have your granulosa cell layer at this area. And of course, you have this one, your theca layer, which is highly vascular. Okay, and so you have your theca layer. You have here an illustration showing you the growth of your ovarian follicles. This one is already your Graafian follicle. Okay, and so your Graafian follicle present in this one. Of course, waiting for the discharge of the oocyte. Okay, Graafian follicle waiting for the discharge. Still, we're on the ovary. Your ovulation, this is the release of your secondary oocyte from your Graafian follicle. Okay, again, please note do not be confused. Present, of course, in your follicles. Okay, and so present in your follicles are oocyte. Okay, again, your follicles inside them, they have oocyte or they have the ova. Okay, they have the egg cell. Okay, huwag pong kalimutan yon. Okay, baka pumalito tayo. Again, present inside your follicles are, I mean actually the oocyte is the oocyte. Okay, your ovulation again, that is the release of your secondary oocyte from your Graafian follicle. Okay, and yes, let's take a look at the factors responsible for the release or for the ovulation. Okay, and so first, accordingly, is an increased volume of follicular fluid. And then you have your plasminogen causing proteolysis of your follicular cells. Okay, and then you have your prostaglandin-induced smooth muscle contractions of your theca externa layer. Okay, if there is an increase in the volume of your follicular fluid, please note that what they call this, it will what they call this build pressure. Okay, it will build pressure, and this pressure will help the follicle to protrude from the ovarian surface and will eventually burst, releasing the oocyte. Of course, your what you call this activity of your proteolytic enzymes like your collagenase, your plasminogen activator within the follicle will weaken and digest the connective tissues of your follicular wall and also the outer ovarian wall. Okay, and so of course, releasing your secondary oocyte. And yes, of course, your prostaglandins will stimulate the contractions of your smooth muscle fibers found in the outer theca external layer of the follicle. This contraction will help to physically expel the oocyte and surrounding cumulus cells into the peritoneal cavity. Okay, and so those are your factors affecting ovulation. Ovulation pa rin po tayo. Please note that at the surface of the ovary covering the bulging follicle, the bulging Graafian follicle, at the surface of the ovary covering the bulging Graafian follicle, blood supply of the germinal epithelium will stop. Okay, and so blood supply of the germinal epithelium will stop, and this cessation or stopping of the blood supply to the germinal epithelium will lead to formation of a small necrotic zone, and you call this small necrotic zone as macula pellucida. Again, this small necrotic zone, which is caused by the stopping or cessation of blood supply of your germinal epithelium, is called as your macula pellucida. Again, your macula pellucida is a small necrotic zone caused by the cessation of the blood supply to that portion. Okay, and so macula pellucida, or otherwise known as stigma also. Other references, they call it as stigma. They call this one as stigma. Okay. The oocyte will come out of your macula pellucida. Please note that the oocyte will come out of the macula pellucida. Okay, after ovulation, your secondary oocyte is available for 24 to 48 hours. Okay, after ovulation, of course, ovulation again, that is the release of secondary oocyte, diba? Secondary oocyte from your Graafian follicle. So your oocyte, secondary oocyte, will come out of the macula pellucida. Okay, after it is released, the secondary oocyte is viable for 24 to 48 hours. Okay, it is viable for 24 to 48 hours. Okay, if fertilization does not occur, the secondary oocyte degenerates. Okay, if fertilization does not occur, your secondary oocyte degenerates. And yes, your secondary oocyte begins a second meiotic division but gets arrested at metaphase. Okay, again, your secondary oocyte begins your second meiotic division, but then will get arrested at the metaphase stage. Okay, and so this second meiotic division will be completed only if the ova is fertilized. Again, the secondary oocyte, which is arrested at the metaphase, will complete the second meiotic division only if it is fertilized. Okay, fertilized by a sperm cell, of course, only when it is fertilized by a sperm. Okay? On ovulation, the follicles will collapse. Okay, the follicle will collapse and its wall becomes enfolded to form a corpus luteum. Okay, again, during ovulation, the follicle collapses and its wall becomes enfolded to form your corpus luteum. Your corpus luteum here is a yellow body. Okay, it is a yellow body. Please note that the cells of your granulosa and theca internal layers enlarges in the size and get filled with lipid pigment called as your lipochrome. Okay, this lipochrome is yellow colored. Again, the cells of your stratum granulosa and theca internal layers will enlarge in size, of course, and they get filled with lipid pigment known as lipochrome, which is this lipochrome is yellow colored pigment. Okay, you have your cells of your corpus luteum. You have again your granulosa luteum cells, which are large. Okay, with centrally located nuclei. And then your thecalotin cells, these are small peripherally located cells. Okay, the granulosa lutein cells secrete progesterone, whereas your theca, okay, and so lutein cells secrete estradiol. Okay, your granulosa cells, granulosa luteum cells, they secrete progesterone, whereas your theca lutein cells, they secrete estradiol accordingly. So what happens then to your, what they call this, corpus luteum? If fertilization, please note, if fertilization does not occur, the corpus luteum will undergo degeneration to form your corpus albicans. Again, if fertilization does not occur, the corpus luteum will degenerate to form corpus albicans. Okay, to form your corpus albicans. Okay. Of course, the process, the cells of your corpus luteum will become swollen. Okay, they will become thin and become pycnotic. Okay, the corpus luteum cells will become swollen, they become thin, and then they become pycnotic. And yes, they will get replaced by a scar of connective tissue after complete autolysis. Again, the cells of your corpus luteum will be replaced by a scar of connective tissue after complete autolysis. And this scar, which is white, color, okay, this white scar that replaces the cells of your corpus luteum is called as your corpus albicans. Okay, and so your corpus albicans. Of course, your corpus albicans or this white scar will slowly sink deeper into the ovarian cortex and will disappear in several months. This one actually is a histological image showing you your cortical stroma of your ovary. Okay, and so this is your ovarian stromal cells. Okay, and so please note you have spindle-shaped stromal cells present. And of course, you have your single layer of cuboidal epithelial cells present here. You have here an illustration of an ovary containing two corpora lutea or corpus luteum. Okay, and so corpus luteum. Each corpus luteum, okay, and so this is a corpus luteum. Each corpus luteum shows a central blood clot. Okay, and so this is a corpus luteum, sorry, and then there is a central blood clot. Okay, and so there is a central blood clot that is surrounded by a granulosa lutein cells. Your granulosa lutein cells here, they have this lipid rich, they are lipid rich. Okay, and so you have your granulosa lutein cells present. And then you have here what we call this a an illustration of your granulosa cells. Okay, and a theca lutein cells. Okay, and so your theca lutein cells. Okay, and so of course again, this is an illustration of a mature follicle. Okay, there's is illustration of a corpus luteum, sorry. Okay, and so corpus luteum and corpus luteum. And then you have your corpus albicans. The corpus luteum will involute to form a shrunken mass of your collagenous tissue, which is known as your corpus albicans. Okay, and so this corpus albicans maintains approximately the shape of your original corpus luteum. And yes, okay, and so your corpus albicans will, what you call this, disappear after several months. Okay, and so yes, let's take a look at your formation or your gametogenesis, no? Of course, you have your primordial germ cells. Primordial germ cells will give rise to your oogonia. Okay, saan po galing? What is the source? Your primordial germ cells, they migrate from the yolk sac to the gonadal ridge to develop your ovary. Okay, your primordial germ cells again, they migrate from the yolk sac to the gonadal ridge to develop your ovary. Okay, and your primordial germ cells, they give rise to your oogonia. Okay, they give rise to your oogonia. And your primary oocyte, sorry, and your oogonia will give rise to your primary oocyte. It will give rise to your primary oocyte, which is then arrested in the diplotene stage, arrested at birth. Okay, this one will be arrested at birth. And yes, okay, and so soon as puberty comes in, okay, this primary oocyte is, soon as puberty comes in, the primary oocyte is reactivated. Okay, and so it is reactivated. Okay, and so your primary oocyte is present in your ovarian follicle, and then you have your, after your primary ovarian follicle will further enlarge to form your secondary ovarian follicle, and then your secondary ovarian follicle will further proliferate to form your Graafian follicle. Okay, your Graafian follicle. Okay, and so yes, you have here, of course, in your Graafian follicle, you have there your secondary oocyte and your polar body. Okay, you have here again an illustration showing you the development of your follicles. You have your primordial follicle, okay, your primary follicle, and then your secondary or multilaminar primary follicle, secondary follicle, and then your Graafian follicle. Of course, present R is actually your oocyte. This one naman is the development or the ovulation process. Of course, you have your primordial follicle will further enlarge, and then, of course, your Graafian follicle will be released. Okay, let's take a look at your fallopian tubes. Your fallopian tubes, these are a pair actually of mucomuscular tubes that convey ova from the ovaries to your uterine cavity. And yes, your fallopian tube, this is the site of fertilization. It serves as the site for fertilization. Okay, your fallopian tubes is 10 to 12 centimeters in length, and it has four parts. You have the infundibulum, the ampulla, the isthmus, and then your uterine or the interstitial part. Of course, the infundibulum, this is a funnel-shaped part that lies adjacent to the ovary. Okay, the infundibulum is a funnel-shaped part that lies adjacent to your ovary. It lies next. Ganon. And your infundibulum has a finger-like projections known as your fimbriae. Again, it has a finger-like projections known as the fimbriae. And then you have your ampulla, which is the longest part and is a thin wall dilated portion. Okay, the ampulla, this is the site of fertilization. This is the specific site of fertilization, the ampulla. Okay, and then the isthmus, it is the narrowest part. Okay, it is the narrowest part. And then you have your uterine or your interstitial part, which lies within the wall of uterus and communicates with the uterine cavity. Okay, it communicates with the uterine cavity. Please note that your fallopian tube, your fallopian tube has a bidirectional transport. Okay, and so it has a bidirectional transport. Okay, bidirectional. First is your sperm is transported toward the ampulla, coming from the uterus going to the ampulla. Okay, that is the first. Okay, and then the other, since bidirectional nga po, the other one is the movement of your ovum. Okay, and your fertilized egg. Okay, the movement of your ovum and your fertilized egg. Of course, the ova, it will come from the ovary. Okay, and yes, the ova and the fertilized egg will move toward the uterus. From the uterus, your sperm will move to the ampulla. And yes, from the ampulla, from the ampulla, your ovum and your fertilized egg will move toward the uterus. Kaya it has a bidirectional transport. The walls of your fallopian tube shows three layers from the inside. Okay, you have the mucosa from the inside to outward, of course. You have the mucosa, you have a muscle layer, and a serosa. Okay, the mucosa consists of a thin longitudinal folds that fill the lumen. The mucosa again has a thin longitudinal folds that fill the lumen. And yes, these folds are more numerous in the ampulla portion of the fallopian tube. Okay, it is lined. The epithelial lining is simple ciliated columnar epithelium. Please note, simple ciliated columnar epithelium, and it has two type of cells. Of course, you have your ciliated columnar cells and non-ciliated columnar PEG cells. Okay, your ciliated columnar cells, these are cells which show cilia that beat toward the uterus. They beat toward the uterus for to move your ova. Okay, again, the cilia will be toward the uterus, okay, in sync to move your ova. Okay, and then of course you have your non-ciliated columnar or your PEG cells, which secrete a fluid that will nourish your spermatogonia and the fertilized egg. Again, your non-ciliated columnar cells or PEG cells, they secrete a fluid that nourish the spermatogonia and your fertilized egg. Okay, of course, they provide an environment for capacitation of the sperm also. Okay, and so that is for your non-ciliated columnar PEG cells. Okay. And yes, please note that for your fallopian tube, the lining epithelium shows cyclic changes in the menstrual cycle. Okay, they show cyclic changes. I mean, yes, your lining epithelium shows cyclic changes in the menstrual cycle. Okay, and so please note that the core of your mucosal folds consist of highly cellular and vascular connective tissue. Again, the mucosal folds consist of highly cellular and vascular connective. The muscle layer or the muscular coat of your fallopian tubes, the muscle layer consists of two layers of smooth muscle cells. You have an inner thick circular layer and an outer thin longitudinal layer. Your circular muscle layer accordingly is thickest in the isthmus. Okay, in the isthmus. And this circular muscle layer controls the passage of fertilized ova from your fallopian tube to the uterus. Again, this circular muscle layer, which is thickest in the isthmus, it controls the passage of fertilized ova from your fallopian tube to the uterus. And yes, of course, your fallopian tube, it has a serosa or your peritoneal coat. The fallopian tube, of course, is covered by a thin layer of connective tissue and a mesothelium accordingly. Please note that your fallopian tube, it has no muscularis mucosae and submucosa. Okay, again, wala pong muscularis mucosae and submucosa in your fallopian tubes. This one actually is an illustration, of course, of your uterine tube. Okay, your ovary. Okay, of course, you have your uterine tube or your uterus. You have the ovary. Okay, and then, of course, you have the uterus. Okay, and so this is the isthmus. You have the ampulla. Okay, the ampulla portion of your fallopian tube, and then you have the fimbriae. Your fimbriae here is a finger-like structure. Of course, you have your, what do you call this, intramural segment or the uterine interstitial segment. Of course, you have the uterus here. Okay, and so yes, the ova coming here will move going to the uterus, while the sperm that will come here will move going here. Okay, the ampulla, this is the portion wherein fertilization takes place. Okay, you have here an illustration or a micrograph or a histologic image of the ampulla of your uterus. Okay, it has a muscular wall and a lumen with what they call this uh, folds. Okay, and so with the folds. Okay, it has folds. And then, of course, you have here a higher magnification. Okay, showing the what they call this your ciliated cells. Okay, and so you have a cilia that will beat in sync to move your ova. Okay, and then of course you have the stroma. Okay, and so you have the stroma here. Okay, your uterus. Your uterus, this is a muscular organ located in the pelvic cavity. Okay, it is pear-shaped that has the following parts. You have a body, a fundus, and a cervix. Okay, and so the body, this is the part of the uterus that extends between the cervix and the openings of the fallopian tube. And then your fundus, that is the uppermost dome-shaped part of the uterus that lies above the openings of your fallopian tube. And then, of course, you have the cervix, which is the lowest part of the uterus. And yes, it is barrel-shaped and separated from the body of the uterus by a constriction called an isthmus. Okay? That is for your body, fundus, and cervix portions of the uterus. Please note that the canal of your cervix opens into the uterine cavity through your internal os, and yes, into the vagina through the external os. Okay, the canal of your cervix again opens into the uterine cavity through your internal os, while into the vagina through your external os. Okay, your uterine wall consists of three layers. You have your endometrium, you have your myometrium, and your perimetrium accordingly. Okay, your endometrium. Okay, of course, your endometrium, the mucosal lining of your uterus. Okay, that is the endometrium. Again, the mucosal lining of your uterus is the endometrium. Okay, your endometrium consists of course, there is a lining epithelium since it is the mucosa. Diba? The lining epithelium is your simple columnar epithelium. Okay, and it has uterine glands. It has uterine glands. You have simple tubular glands, which are lined by simple columnar epithelium. Okay, the uterine glands are simple tubular glands which are lined by simple columnar epithelium also. The endometrial stroma, the stroma of the endometrium is highly vascular and contains an endometrial or uterine glands. Endometrial glands or uterine glands. Okay, and then please note that there are strata of your endometrium. You have strata of the endometrium. Okay, and so you have actually three. You have your stratum compactum, stratum spongiosum, and stratum basale. Okay, your stratum compactum, this is the superficial layer containing the neck of your uterine glands. Superficial layer. Okay, stratum compactum. Stratum spongiosum, it is the middle layer consisting of loose areolar tissue. Okay, middle layer. And then your stratum basale, it is the deep layer that lies adjacent to your myometrium. Okay, stratum basale lies adjacent to your myometrium. And then, of course, you have the myometrium. Your myometrium consists of smooth muscle cells, which are, consist of smooth muscle cells, which are arranged in inner longitudinal layer, in middle irregular layer, and outer longitudinal layer. Okay, the myometrium is the thickest layer of the uterine wall. And yes, again, it has three layers of muscle. Again, you have an inner longitudinal, a middle irregular layer. Here in the irregular layer, the muscle fibers are oriented in a circular or spiral pattern. Okay, and the middle layer contains numerous vessels. And yes, it is also called a stratum vasculare. Okay, the middle layer. It's also called a stratum vasculare. Okay, and then you have, of course, your outer longitudinal layer. Please note that during pregnancy, the smooth muscle cells of the myometrium can undergo hypertrophy. Okay, the smooth muscle cells of the myometrium can undergo hypertrophy during pregnancy. What does your hypertrophy mean? The hypertrophy is simply an enlargement in the size of the cell, as well as your myometrium muscle cells can undergo hyperplasia. When you say hyperplasia naman, there's an increase in the number of cells. Okay, your myometrium can contract during pregnancy, of course. It can contract on the release of oxytocin from the posterior pituitary, and this one will help in the expulsion of fetus from the uterus. Okay, and so that is during pregnancy. Okay, and then you have a perimetrium. Perimetrium, this is, of course, your outer mesothelium. Of course, the uterus is covered by a perimetrium. Your perimetrium has two layers. You have an outer layer of mesothelium. Again, when you say mesothelium, it is a covering. Kapag endothelium, of course, the inner lining of your blood vessels, diba? Outer layer of mesothelium, which is made of simple squamous epithelium. And then there is an inner layer of vascular connective tissue. Okay? Your endometrium undergoes histological changes. Okay, and so you have phases also. Let's take a look first at your proliferative phase. This phase involves the repair of damaged endometrium by proliferation of the cells of your stratum basale. Okay, during the proliferative phase, your glandular epithelium proliferates to cover the entire endometrium, and the glands become straight and they have a narrow lumen. And yes, the endometrial stroma will proliferate to make an endometrium which is 3 to 4 millimeters in thickness. Okay, and yes, your spiral arteries elongate and reach the middle endometrium accordingly. Okay, you have secretory phase also. And yes, this secretory phase is under the control of your hormone, progesterone. Okay, under the control of your progesterone. Okay, and so there are changes that happens in the glands. The uterine glands becomes more coiled and tortuous, which will produce a sawtooth appearance. And yes, again, your glandular epithelium starts accumulating glycogen because the glandular epithelium, the glands secrete a carbohydrate rich fluid. Okay, again, the glandular epithelium starts accumulating glycogen, which of course sooner they secrete a carbohydrate rich fluid. And there are also changes in the stroma. Changes in the stroma, the spiral arteries will become tortuous, the vascularity of the endometrium is enhanced. Okay, and then the uterine fluid starts accumulating in the stroma and makes it edematous and thick, and your stromal cells accumulate glycogen and lipid droplets in their cytoplasm. And yes, they call that as decidual reaction. In the latter portion of the secretory phase, due to low levels of estrogen and progesterone, the spiral arteries will undergo constriction. Okay, and this constriction of the spiral arteries will cause a decrease in blood supply to the endometrium. It will cause a decrease in blood supply to the endometrium, causing ischemia. Okay, again, due to the low levels of estrogen and progesterone, your spiral arteries undergoes constriction, and this one will result in a decreased blood supply to the endometrium, causing ischemia. The ischemia here will cause the release of prostaglandins and proteolytic enzymes that will cause menstrual bleeding. Okay, your stratum basale will remain intact because this is supplied by a straight arteries rather than spiral arteries. Okay, the superficial layers, your the portion of your stratum functionalis, they are shed off during the menstrual phase. Okay, they are shed off during the menstrual phase. Okay, again, the stratum basale remains intact because again, this stratum basale, it is supplied by straight arteries rather than the spiral arteries. Okay, so you have here an illustration showing you your faces. Okay, and so this day 1 to 4, accordingly, there is a change in the spiral arteriole in the stroma, which will produce a ischemic necrosis of the functional endometrium, which is shed off. Okay, and so the necrotic endometrium from the previous cycle will shed off. Okay, and then you have this one, your day 5 to 14. This is the proliferative phase. Okay, you have your new straight tubular endometrial glands and stroma will grow from your residual basal endometrium. And during this time, there is a high mitotic activity. Okay, in days 5 to 14. And in day 14 to 16, this is your ovulatory phase. Ovulatory phase. This is the in this phase, this is the earliest sign of secretory activity in the endometrial glands. And your 16 to 25 or 16 to 28, your secretory phase. Your endometrial glands, okay, and so endometrial glands become tortuous and the lumina is filled with secretion. Okay, and so for some references, your days 25 to 28 is your premenstrual phase. Okay, wherein the spiral arterioles, which are prominent in the stroma, okay, and so ischemia will lead to the degeneration and necrosis accordingly. Okay, and so that is for your menstrual phase. Of course, in this illustration, it shows you also the connection of your endocrine system to your menstrual cycle. Here actually a histologic image showing you the secretory phase and the follicular phase accordingly. Okay, and so in the secretory phase, of course, the uterine glands become more coiled. Okay, and so they become more coiled accordingly. These are your tortuous uterine glands. They become more coiled. The glandular epithelium starts accumulating glycogen, is what you call. And yes, the spiral arteries, okay, the spiral arteries become more tortuous. Okay, and the vascularity of the endometrium enhances or is enhanced also. Again. So, yes, that is for your secretory phase. And of course, you have your follicular phase. Move on from your uterus. Please note that again, the ovary and the uterus, they show a cyclic changes under the control of your hormones. And this cyclic changes is called as your menstrual cycle. Okay, your menstrual cycle is a cyclic changes of your ovary and uterus under the control of your hormones. Okay, and so some terms in relation to your menstrual cycle, you have your menarche. Okay, that is the initiation of your menstrual cycle, or that is actually your first menstrual cycle. And your menarche occurs at 9 to 14 years of age. And your menopause, or your climacterium, it is the termination of your menstrual cycle. And yes, it occurs by the age of 45 to 55 years. Okay, and so 45 to 55 years. Okay, and then the average length of each menstrual cycle is 28 to 30 days accordingly. And it varies from female to female. It varies accordingly. The cervix of the uterus. So your cervix is the lower part of the uterus. Okay, it is the lower part of the uterus. It has a narrow cavity known as your cervical canal, which your cervical canal communicates with the lumen, or the lumen, the cervical lumen, the lumen of the cervical canal communicates with the cavity of your uterine body through your internal os. Okay, your internal os, whereas of course with the vagina through your external os. Okay, the lower projecting part of the cervix in the vagina is called as the portio vaginalis. Okay, cervix, it shows an endocervix and a muscle layer. And yes, the endocervix is made of, or is the canal of the cervical canal of your endocervix is lined by tall columnar mucus secreting epithelium. And yes, the epithelium rests on a lamina propria, which is made of loose areolar connective tissue. The lamina propria of your endocervix is loose areolar connective tissue. And the cervical glands present in the lamina propria are small branched tubular glands and they secrete cervical mucus that is rich in lysozyme. Okay, the cervical glands, okay, are small branched tubular glands that are present in the lamina propria, and they secrete cervical mucus that is rich in lysozyme. Okay, and then you have a muscle coat. You have a fibroelastic tissue and smooth muscles. The elastic component of your muscle coat is essential for stretching. Okay, and so it's essential for stretching of the cervix during childbirth. Okay, and so again, the mucosa or the muscle coat Okay, the muscle coat of your uterus, cervix of the uterus, is a thick layer of fibroelastic tissue and smooth muscles. Okay, the smooth muscle comprises about 6 to 25% lang naman. And then the rest, of course, is fibroelastic. Okay, the elastic component is essential for stretching of the cervix during childbirth. And then you have your ectocervix or your portio vaginalis. Okay, the portion, your ectocervix, this is the portion of the cervix that projects into the vagina. Okay, and yes, the ectocervix shows a transformation zone, no, where simple columnar epithelium of the cervical canal becomes stratified squamous epithelium that continues with vaginal epithelium accordingly. Okay, this one actually is an illustration or a histologic image showing you your cervix. Okay, again, the stroma of your cervix is smooth muscle fibers, okay, that are embedded in collagen. Okay, you have blood and lymphatic vessels that are prominent and numerous. And yes, the ectocervix, okay, the ectocervix is covered with stratified squamous epithelium. And yes, your endocervical canal, okay, this portion, your endocervical canal is lined by tall columnar epithelium. Okay, and so the junction between your squamous and columnar epithelium is located in the region of your external os. Okay, and so you have here your transformation zone. Okay, and so again, this is your transformation zone, that is the junction between the squamous and columnar epithelium. Okay, and so in your external os. Okay, okay, your ectocervix, stratified squamous epithelium that covers, of course, your ectocervix, which is seen in those of vagina. Okay, and so the cells in your ectocervix are rich in glycogen during the period of sexual maturity. Okay, this one naman is an endocervix. Your endocervix, okay, the endocervical canal is lined by a single layer of tall columnar mucus secreting epithelium. Okay, and yes, you have invaginations, deep invaginations. Okay, and your vagina. Your vagina is a fibromuscular elastic tube, and it is about 8 centimeters in length, and it extends from your external cervical os to your external genitalia. Again, your vagina extends from your external cervical os to your external genitalia. And your vagina has 3 layers. You have mucosa, a muscle layer, and an adventitia. Your mucosa is, it shows longitudinal folds, numerous longitudinal folds. And yes, the lining epithelium is non-keratinized, stratified squamous. Some may show keratinization. No, in the follicular phase, the epithelium accumulates intracellular glycogen, whereas in the secretory, the glycogen content diminishes. Okay, and so in the secretory, this one in the follicular and secretory, these are still phases wherein phases of your menstrual cycle. Okay, and the lamina propria is broad and highly vascular. The muscle layer consists of smooth muscle fibers arranged as inner circular and outer longitudinal layers. Okay, the muscle layer contains many elastic and the terminal part of the vagina is guarded by by fibers of your bulbus spongiosum muscle or your striated muscle. And yes, your vagina, it has an adventitia. Okay, the vagina is surrounded by an adventitia that is made of connective tissue and blood vessels. Okay, this one is a histologic image of your vaginal wall showing you your glycogen-rich stratified squamous epithelium. Okay, and of course, you have your submucosa and an irregular smooth muscle. Okay, your mons pubis, your mons pubis is the area, okay, overlying your symphysis pubis, and it is characterized by the presence of an unusually oblique hair follicles. Okay, these unusually oblique hair follicles produce your coarse, curly pubic hair that is common to most, accordingly, that is common to most individual. And yes, underneath the skin is a skin, and underneath the skin is a subcutaneous fat. Okay, and so subcutaneous fat. Majora, these are posterolateral extensions of your mons pubis on either side of your vaginal introitus accordingly. The labia majora, they are similarly richly endowed with subcutaneous fat and oblique hair follicles. Same, of course, with mons pubis. There are smooth muscle fibers and subcutaneous fat still. Please note that accumulation of subcutaneous fat and the development of your oblique hair follicles in the pubic hair is dependent on hormones. Okay, and so hormone dependent. And yes, this it begins with the onset of sexual maturity during the ages, usually ages between 10 and 13. Okay, accumulation again of such, I mean, starts with, usually between the ages of 10 and 13. Okay, and so the labia majora is rich in apocrine glands and the prominent sebaceous glands. Okay, and so these apocrine and sebaceous glands mature and become active at the onset of sexual maturity. But note that the eccrine sweat glands are present from birth, and which are present from birth or at birth, they do not show any changes. Of your labia minora, okay, although hair follicles are absent in the labia minora, there are many sebaceous glands that open directly on the epidermal surface. Please note that your labia minora is a thin flaps of skin devoid of adipose tissue but has abundant blood vessels and elastic fibers. Okay, the epidermis of both the labia minora and labia majora becomes pigmented with the melanin. Okay, it becomes pigmented with melanin with the onset of puberty. The outer lateral aspect of the labia minora is usually more pigmented than the inner medial aspect. Okay? On the inner aspect, the melanin pigmentation becomes progressively reduced as your vaginal introitus is approached. And your hymen here is a thin fibrous membrane that is rarely completely intact and usually appears as an irregular frill, okay, in the lining of the lower vagina. Okay, and so for your hymen. Okay, and yes, the hymen can be regarded as a junction between the internal and external genitalia. Clitoris is located below the mons pubis and is the female equivalent of penis. The clitoris is composed of two corpora cavernosa of erectile vascular tissue, which lie side by side surrounded by a fibrocollagenous sheath. Okay, this fibrocollagenous sheath is an incomplete central septum that partly separates your two corpora cavernosa. No, the clitoris is covered by a thin epidermis that has no hair follicles, no sebaceous glands, no eccrine glands, and no apocrine glands. But okay, the clitoris is richly equipped with sensory nerves and variety of receptors. Again, okay, it is sensitive. Your clitoris is richly equipped with sensory nerves and variety of receptors. Okay, the clitoris, which is accordingly small before puberty, it enlarges to a greater or lesser extent with the onset of sexual maturity. During sexual arousal, it becomes engorged in a manner similar to the penis. And yes, of course, your urethral meatus opens to the exterior in the midline below the clitoris. On either side of the meatus are openings of the paraurethral glands, and these glands are located around the urethra. Okay, so I guess that's it for today. We will continue next time. Thank you for making this far. Thank you so much. And yes, this has been Gael, reminding you to live fully, love deeply, love often, keep learning, and never forget to enjoy the ride. Thank you so much, and see you around.